Oh boy, yeah, it's that time again, folks. We're gonna look at more concepts for Spider-Man costumes. This time from the critically acclaimed masterpiece that is The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And if there is one thing that film got really right, it was the Spider-Man suit, with many still praising it as the definitive Spider-Man suit even today. What do I think of it? Yeah, that's Mark Bagley Spider-Man right there. It's truly a thing of beauty. My preference is still on the costumes that we've seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and my preference is still ultimately on the Raimi trilogy suit, but this suit is gorgeous. It took all the best things about the designs before it and gave us the big round eyes. But like any suit that you see in a superhero film, there have been other concepts leading up to that design that will have been rejected. Looking at the rejected suits from The Amazing Spider-Man 1 was comedic gold. Some of these designs were so bad, one could only think the brief just said, "Make Spider-Man edgy." It will be interesting to see what kind of a sort of vibe we get from the Amazing Spider-Man 2 suit concepts. A point worth noting is that Sony Pictures were well aware of the backlash towards the Spider-Man suit that they had in The Amazing Spider-Man. They felt that it was a step too far, and they wanted to do something a bit more colorful, a bit more classic for the second one. So let's find out what led us down that path. So sit back, relax, subscribe, we're gonna look at some Spider-Man suit designs. So, immediately, this first one is an even further cry from the classic Spider-Man design than the Amazing Spider-Man 1 suit, but it is immediately clear that bolder colors and big eyes were a part of the mandate. Gone are those little yellow tea strainer eyes, replaced with these big, mirrored, sort of platinum-looking eyes. The colors this time are metallic, and they look nice in this concept design here, but I can't imagine they would have looked good in live action. I definitely don't like how much red there is going down the legs, and I'm not a fan of the amount of fragmentation going down the torso. The raised webbing is back though, as is the raised spider, and the raised spider is back in the Raimi design. Another interesting tidbit is he's got that fingerless glove look that the Ryan Meenading costumes seem to be obsessed with. He's also got these weird red stripes hugging around the arms, which I find a bit strange. Overall, it's unique, and it's certainly an improvement on some of the concepts that we saw in the Amazing Spider-Man 1 concept art, but it's too far of a cry from the classic Spider-Man design for me. Ah, boy. Okay, so this design here is in a similar vein to one of Ryan Meenading's designs, where he incorporated the symbiote spider onto the classic red and blue suit, and it just doesn't work in my opinion. This suit has kind of an Iron Man sort of a vibe to it, and that's kind of interesting because those Amazing Spider-Man films were all about mimicking successful formulas. The first one was kind of mimicking a Dark Knight sort of a vibe, the second one was mimicking a MCU sort of a vibe, and so it makes sense that we got a more metallic Spider-Man costume for V2 going by that trend, but oh jeez, thank Christ that we didn't get a metallic Spider-Man suit. I can tell that this is from the same designer as some of the suit designs that we had on the previous list, because it's the same body sculpt and everything like that, so it's got a similar vibe. It's definitely an improvement upon this artist's previous efforts with the Amazing Spider-Man 1 designs, that's for sure, because it doesn't look so damn sinister. It's definitely a lot less edgy and more in line with a traditional Spider-Man suit than anything we saw from this artist on the previous list. And hey, the web wings are in there. That's a cool little detail. And the eyes are definitely along the lines of what we got on the final suit. No webbing in sight though. That's just strange. Spider-Man without the webbing is like, well, that's just weird. Okay, getting weirder now. So there's a very sort of spiky look to the red parts, and again, they're going down as sort of, it's an Iron Man-ish spider route. And like, how would they have made this work anyway with the armaments? Like there doesn't appear to be any, like, armor joins on this or anything. Would it have just been, like, a rubbery suit? I can't imagine this working. Would it have been CGI? Because you know how I feel about an all CGI Spider-Man. So the eyes on here very much remind me of the Velocity suit from Spider-Man PS4 that everyone's obsessing over, which it doesn't look good in my opinion. But this obviously, predates that, so this came first. Definitely don't like the eyes. Like, you can only mess with Spider-Man's eyes so much, in my opinion. I think there still would be a white thing with black frames around them and gotta look kind of formy. The smaller spider on the chest is pretty cool, I guess. Like, I don't mind that too much. Again, not a web in sight. I'm not really a fan of how this this particular artist has opted to go with their Spider-Man suits so far, I must admit. I'm sure this artist could make amazing designs for other superheroes, probably make a really fierce-looking Iron Man suit, but I don't know if they're the right fit for Spider-Man. And then we have version 3, which again takes this down a more of a practical sort of an Iron Man sort of a route, especially with the mask this time, and that the lenses are more like sort of built into a helmet sort of a thing. Spider-Man just doesn't work in armor in my opinion, but I think the overall layout of it is quite interesting. Like maybe they could incorporate that on a form of Iron Spider if they ever wanted to tackle that in the MCU at some point, but I doubt they really could. Well, you know, because rights and all that. We're probably never going to see the Iron Spider again. I guess of the armor suits that we've had on this list so far, this is one of the most interesting ones. Back at it again with the big eyes stretching across the entirety of the head. I don't dig it, but it does look like an interesting combination of sort of the Electro-proof suit that Spider-Man did wear in the comics at some point, which makes sense because he does meet Electro in this film. And it also looks a little bit like Spider-Man 2099. A little too simplistic to be Spider-Man 2099, but not far off. But what would a Spider-Man 2099 suit be doing in a Peter Parker-based movie? But bigger question, what the hell is Miles Morales doing here? Hello, 2014 fan service. I haven't seen you since... well, Into the Spider-Verse, I guess. I definitely don't think it would be very satisfactory of them to just take the Miles Morales suit and stick it on Peter Parker. So I don't know where this suit would have ever fallen into the film, or if it was ever their intention to introduce any kind of Miles Morales Spider-Man. I mean, even after seeing the Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 together, you still got no idea what the hell their intentions with that franchise were. But I gotta say, this is a really nice realization of the Miles Morales Spider-Man design. It's very glossy. And if done wrong in live action, that could risk looking like a gimp suit. But I guess that raised spider, which is for some reason really satisfying to look at, would probably save it. And he's got giant lenses, like those are huge. Not a fan of how the webs go on the back of the head, and I do feel like there's maybe a little too much red going down the arms and on the boots and everything. I feel like that takes a little bit away from how modern Miles Morales' look was. Like, that look was slick. It did away with some of the classic 60s tropes of a classic 60s superhero costume, in that it did away with the boots and that sort of stuff. So it's kind of interesting to see that brought back here, but I gotta say, I really do like this look. Maybe we could see it as an alternative suit in Into the Spider-Verse 2. Probably never going to see it again. Okay, so here we have what looks kind of like a more of an armored sort of a look, as it definitely appears that the red sections on this are raised, and they definitely cover a lot of body. Like, his chest is certainly protected, that's for sure. His tummy, though, not so much. I guess reducing it around the stomach and lower torso section works because they have a lot of red around the legs. It's got that wraparound look as well around the arms and everything. I'm not a fan of it, and I would call this a downgrade from the Amazing Spider-Man 1 suit, but what I will say is, hello, Raimi logo, and the eyes look nice too. Yeah, overall, it's alright, but as a classic Spidey diehard, it is not buttering my croissant. And we're back at it with the psychedelic-looking neon suits, and it's nice that this artist gave us a back view as well, thank you for that. This suit almost looks kind of Teutonic in how it's, like, done, but I guess we'll go around the sort of the details of it. I don't like the way the webs go around the torso. They're very much centered webs all over the entire thing. I much prefer if they kind of move in different directions as opposed to springing outwards, because it kind of makes it look like he's got a belly button thing going on. It makes him look dented. It works on the head, but I wouldn't say it works anywhere else. What is an interesting detail, though, is that the bulk of the blue sections on this suit is black, or I guess I should say gray, and the blue is more of a border around the red, and I really don't think that's a bad idea. I think that's actually very cool. There's a lot of white outlining, and boy does this thing look shiny. I guess it wouldn't have been that shiny in the final film. The eyes are rounded, almost like goggles, which is, I guess, kind of satisfying to look at. My main issue is the back of the suit. Like, guy, just keep it original, you know? And once again, he's put the big web core in the back of the head, like what was done with the Miles Morales suit, which leads me to believe that this might be the same artist. They've got white outlines going around all the red sections, which doesn't look bad. Definitely not big on the red stripe going down the leg, though. Overall, not big on it, but it's okay. I get the feeling that the designers of the Spider-Man costume for Spider-Man PS4 might have taken a look at this one here, as it's got a big white spider on the front and back, and it's got white outlines around the red sections. This suit is very similar to the previous one that we had on this list just a second ago. but it's now got white spiders. It's got more of a white motif, which is a little more uniform with the entirety of the suit. The eyes are a little bit more narrow, a little bit more angular, which I guess looks nice. I've still got the same issue that I have with the webbing, though, in that it's, you know, it's the webbing core sort of a look, as opposed to being more directional like it is in the classic Spider-Man suit. And again, not big on the big red stripe going down the leg or the big red stripe going down the back, as opposed to just having a back spider. Definitely say keep it classic when it comes to that. I mean, I say keep it classic when it comes to the Spider-Man suit anyway, and I'm pretty sure concept artists would probably hate to work for me because they're like, why can't I have my freedom? It appears that they've done away with all the blue on this suit altogether as well, in favor of it just being red and black. That's kind of ambitious. Maybe they took a little bit of inspiration from that when going into the Marvel Studios Spider-Man costume designs, but I guess that's a bit of a reach because, I mean, making a red and black Spider-Man is not the most original idea in the world. It's not bad by any stretch, but it's not something I would pick if I was working in sort of like the production department, I guess. Okay, yeah, no, they wanted to make it more classically inclined because the Amazing Spider-Man 1 suit was a bit too offensive to classic Spidey diehards, and this suit certainly would not fix that. So there's a lot more black on this suit, as the entire torso section of red has been removed, and there's black on the sides of his head too. Or is it a dark blue? I don't know. The red section is no longer bordered by white lines, and he's got these little blue lenses on him, with no web in sight on this costume either. He's got the spiders there, and the back of this one is actually an improvement on the previous ones because it doesn't have that big red stripe going down the back, it's just the red spider. But having these really bright, garish, primary color red spiders on an otherwise very muted, very dialed back suit, it doesn't do it for me. This is definitely not a great one in my opinion. Oh, this one's a triple pack. Let's start on the one in the left. So this one kind of appears to draw some inspiration from the Amazing Spider-Man 1 suit. Now it's got the red stripes going down the legs, and the webbing is quite uneven on it. Still symmetrical, but not really very even. Which I won't lie, I'm not very fond of at this density, or how it transitions from the sort of the directional webs to suddenly feeling like a central cobweb sort of a look. And yeah, as I say, the webbing is very dense, it's very much a thick black. It has at least got a Spidey belt this time, but the webbing around there looks kind of like a moustache, which I don't like. The eyes definitely appear to be a little more in the direction of the Sam Raimi eyes, and they are at least nice and white this time. It's overall, it's a tepid look in my opinion. Like, it's okay, but it's not anything I'm screaming about. This second one is a downgrade in my opinion because of how weird and complex the belt section looks. It's got a big spider on the chest this time, and the webbing is a bit more consistent around the wrists and hands. On the head, though, that webbing is very, very dense. Definitely not a massive fan of that. And the third one is, that's my least favorite of all of them. There's a lot of red on the arms, but it cuts off at the shoulders, it seems. There seems to be a red border around the webbing on the torso, which is strange. I would prefer if it actually just cut off there. As I say, webbing is very, very dense. The spider in the middle is fairly big, but I guess more medium. It's got a belt, but it does cut off before it reaches it, so it kind of does still break off that flow. And then you got these big stripes, much bigger than on the previous costumes, leading down to the boots. This definitely wouldn't have pleased anyone that was complaining that the previous suit wasn't comic accurate enough. I guess the left one would have a fairly decent chance, but overall, the left one is my favorite of this triple pack here, but none of these are ideal in my opinion. Okay, so here we have another triple pack, and this is probably my favorite artist of the bunch, going by the direction that they've taken with this. They have taken things much more back to basics. Starting at the left, we have what looks like a very classic Spider-Man, but it appears to be a much darker sort of a shade of blue, more almost like a grayish sort of a color. He has still got the giant spider on the chest, like in the Amazing Spider-Man 1, but here it's not really as fragmented. He's got these interesting little blue stripes cutting into the red sections on the wrist and cuts in the belt, which I don't mind, but I would definitely prefer if they weren't there. He's also got these little blue stripes cutting into the boots. And as for the mask, it is very similar to what we actually had with the Amazing Spider-Man 2's mask, and it appears that the raised webbing is also something that got used on the final design. I'm gonna hazard a bet that this designer here was the one that designed the suit that went on to become the Amazing Spider-Man 2 suit. As for the middle one, I think that's a little better than the one on the left. The stripe going down the arm, the red stripe appears to be very thin, the blue is a little richer, but the red is a little more muted. There's no cuts going through the belt or through the gloves, so I would say, yeah, that's looking good, to be honest. I'm liking that. And then we got the last one, which is actually my favorite, but I wish the colors weren't quite so muted. So it's a very, very dark, very, very muted color scheme, but it's very, very classic Spidey. It's got these silver raised webs on it, which I love. The texture of the blue section appears to be much more reminiscent of the Amazing Spider-Man 1, which is kind of an interesting design choice, but I get the feeling that this is probably the suit they looked at and said, yep, that's the suit. The spider is obviously a lot bigger than the spider that's on the Amazing Spider-Man 2 suit, so I get the feeling this would have gone through a number of revisions before making it to the final design, but I would say that this is probably it. This is probably the suit that went forward. And I wouldn't blame them for picking it, because that looks really good in my opinion. And hey look, here it is, but in brighter. So yeah, that's great. That's looks exactly like what we got in the end. Even down to the lenses, which are actually a bit bigger than on the previous design that was on this list. And the webbing on the mask appears to be the exact layout. Man, this guy needs to hyphen the spider and man part. Jesus Christ. We got a back view of it as well, and the spider on the back, I definitely prefer something a little less lengthy than this, but I mean, that is how it was in the film anyway. The belt is the only part where the webbing becomes a little less traditional, in that it's kind of got a webbing core section to it, which I'm not big on, but it'll do. I really think that should only be at the front of the head, you know, like they shouldn't do it on other parts of Spidey's body, because it just looks like a dent otherwise. But okay, yeah, like that's big thumbs up for this design. So this render here is extremely similar to the suit that we had in the Amazing Spider-Man 1, and looking at certain concept art of scenarios from the Amazing Spider-Man 2, which I guess I'll talk about in a future video, it definitely appeared that they wanted to reuse the Amazing Spider-Man 1 suit. That was the suit that they had in mind to carry the franchise, but obviously fan backlash, they had to change it. Well, they felt they had to change it anyway. I think people would have been quiet after a while about the suit. I mean, if they listened to the fan backlash about the entire film of the first one, we would have been better off, I reckon. But here we can see that it is very much the same as the Amazing Spider-Man 1 suit with a few tiny little tweaks. So the spider definitely appears to be more solid on the chest. The web lines are much thicker this time. The eyes are exactly the same, but this time they are in a pearly white. And there is a Spidey belt that joins across properly, unlike the one that we have in the Amazing Spider-Man for real, where it cuts off just as it meets the torso. The blue sections on this definitely appear to be either black or a very, very dark grey, or that maybe they're a very, 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 very dark shade of blue. Who knows, but I would say that's definitely a red and black Spider-Man, possibly taking some cues from Ditko, which I know they wanted to take cues from anyway with the original Amazing Spider-Man 1 design. Another interesting thing is there is a black stripe going down the center of the boot for some reason, and I'm definitely not a big fan of that. Okay, so what we have here is very, very nice. This is a really nice midway point between the Amazing Spider-Man 1 suit and classic Spider-Man. This would have been enough to shut me up. So as we can see, the web structure on this is exactly the same as it was on the Amazing Spider-Man 1 suit, as are the lenses, except the lenses are now in white, and it's more of a vibrant red now. And as we can see here, the belt actually connects when it meets at the torso, and the central spider no longer swamps the entirety of the chest, but the web structure goes down all the way just like it does in the original. There's no blue or black on the hands, and the web lines on the wrists are pretty perfect. Much cleaner than they were in the original design. Same goes for on the boots, although it does appear that on the inside of the calf, the web lines only go vertically without any horizontal ones, so I definitely guess I would change that a little bit. There's no red stripe going down the arms, which I think works on this design, to be honest, but I guess it's worth toying with. Overall, this is a nice design. If I had issues that I was vocal about with the Amazing Spider-Man 1 suit, they are definitely fixed on this one here. And then we have the final suit on this list, which is pretty similar to the previous one. It is a fixed version of the Amazing Spider-Man 1 suit, but this time we get a much more detailed look at it. So, I guess one major difference is the lenses on this design to the previous one are much closer to the Amazing Spider-Man 2 lenses. They're a lot bigger, they're a lot warmer, a lot more expressive. Another key difference is that he has the red stripes going down the arms. What's interesting is that the spider on the back of him is still fragmented, just like the Amazing Spider-Man 1 design. I gotta say, I feel like if they had used this suit here in the Amazing Spider-Man 2, for best Spider-Man suit between this and the Raimi suit would be a little bit more even odds. The playing field would be a little more level between the two of them. It would come more down to preference. Of course, I do prefer the Raimi suit to this, but I think I would just say, yeah, I do put it down to 100% preference, whereas with the Amazing Spider-Man 1 suit, there are things about it where I'm just like, yeah, I really don't like that. This takes the Amazing Spider-Man 1 design and perfects it. It makes it into a definitive Spider-Man. I'm gonna admit one thing quickly. So, I do think the suit they went for in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is the best suit they could have possibly chosen. It's the best Spider-Man design of this bunch by far, the final design that they used in the film. It's a beautiful classic Spider-Man that goes back to what we liked about the Sam Raimi Spider-Man suit. The brick patterns are back, the vibrant colors are back, the fabric texture is back. The spider design is much more similar to that than it is the Amazing Spider-Man 1 design. The raised webs are back. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 suit is a classic Spider-Man suit drawing from Sam Raimi's Spider-Man suit's playbook. But here's the thing. I feel like they would have been better off using this suit from the concept art than the Amazing Spider-Man 2 suit that they went for, even though I do prefer that. Because this suit design here is the Amazing Spider-Man 1 suit perfected, and it creates a much more uniform look for this franchise. It keeps in with the original vision of the Amazing Spider-Man, which I feel like they definitely should have done. For the sake of consistency and to give this franchise, or this version of the franchise, its very own distinctive look that we could remember. Now it just jarringly goes from having its own Spider-Man suit design to what looks like if Sam Raimi did the Mark Bagley suit. Either way, it doesn't matter because Spider-Man only wore the costume for 10% of the film's entire runtime anyway. He might as well have worn a potato sack. A truly beautiful costume flushed down the toilet. What do you guys think? Comment below and discuss, and as always, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like it, don't forget to hit subscribe, hit the like button, and in the description below are links to my Patreon and my Discord. Channel Pup has been growing more than I could ever have anticipated over this very short space of time, and I'm absolutely honored to see so many viewers participating in discussions and really enjoying my little projects here. But it's not without its obstacles. I'm currently a student studying film and television, and if I want to afford the general costs that come with living, unfortunately YouTube revenue just can't always cut that cheese. I recently moved in with my girlfriend's family, but this is not a permanent thing, it's just for the summer. And last year I've done the whole act of balancing YouTube, balancing a job, and balancing university, and trust me, the content suffers every single time. So to support this channel to maintain the same quality of content and upload schedule, and to just keep making the stuff you guys really seem to be enjoying, I really do urge you to check out my Patreon link in the description below. And in return, you can get early access previews to the special Channel Pup events such as Marvelous Tales of Spider-Man Episode 2, as well as my upcoming Patreon exclusive playlist, Pup's Project Room, which is all unlockable with a pledge of just $1 or more. Now, the world's a tricky place. Not everybody is made of money, and that's fine. Just please be here for my videos. Please don't stop coming back to join me on these discussions, because it means so much to me, guys, really. Well, I guess I best be hitting the old dusty trail. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I've been Channel Pup, and I'll think of a better catchphrase next time. Now please leave me alone!